This video is about two lightsaber fights that are my personal picks for the best and worst fights that Star Wars has to offer. Star Wars is a big deal to a lot of people. It seems to make some people very glad and some people very, very sad. To be honest, for me it was always just three cool movies. I watched a lot of the extra stuff, but nothing ever really stuck the landing like the original trilogy. I think that was always enough for me, and any of the mystery and unanswered questions that remained after those three films about the Jedi, all the forces of a wider galaxy, was all part of the fun. I guess what I mean to say is, Star Wars is cool, but it isn't my everything. I'm going to be sharing my opinions on some fights in this video, and if I miss anything you love, I'd love to hear about it. Just please understand, I may not be aware of it. The worst sword fight in Star Wars for me has to be Rey and Kylo fighting the guards in The Last Jedi. For me, this fight speaks to quite a lot of film sword fight tropes that I'm not fond of. I do love a good sword fight scene, but just not for the sake of it. If they are long and indulgent, I just lose interest. Sword fights should tell us something. There is a story at play when you watch a fight. There's a narrative going back and forth between what one fighter is thinking and what the other is. Fights that drag on without any real narrative in the action, just random flair, don't really do it for me. To be clear, I don't mean that there need to be high stakes outcomes. I literally mean the moment-to-moment action tells us something about the individuals. The worst offender for this in Star Wars is the fight scene in Revenge of the Sith. Anakin and Obi-Wan fight for what seems like an eternity on set piece after set piece, but it's just a series of twirly, overindulgent nonsense that you don't feel anything about. And personally, by the end, just left me feeling quite bored. You could cut out most of that fight except for the beginning when they decide to fight, and the end where Anakin loses, pretty badly I might add. And really be left with the same experience and impact. I understand that the sword exchanges in real life are just over too damn fast for films and TV shows, and that they need to add a certain level of flamboyance to impress the average viewer. But I honestly think the longer it goes on, the less this fight impresses the viewer. Oftentimes, when films seem to have pretty terrible choreography in them, they will use a lot of quick cuts to make it seem like the action is really fast and complex, but it's normally just down to being too scared to hold the camera on any one clear shot of the action for too long, for fear of revealing how amateur looking it is in reality. This fight's choreography, however, was not well suited for the long, clear shot it opens on. Watching these guards fumble about, not attack or just hang around in the background is ridiculous. They look daft, like they have no real intention of harming Kylo or Rey or even protecting themselves. What's worse is that in this setting, surely a quick force push would give them the space and reason to deal with the guards in smaller numbers, while some recover in the background. But no. They are just content with hanging around back there, watching their friends get killed. Like this guy. What on earth was he doing there? Just waiting? He could have been stabbing Rey in the back. And herein lies the issue. Anyone who's ever fenced against two opponents at once will tell you it's a fucking nightmare. You really are up against impossible odds. It can work. You can make it out alive. It isn't likely, but it is possible. But the odds are laughably low, and if the odds are that low against two people, imagine how bad it gets against 3 or 4. It's nigh on impossible to win a sword fight in that situation. Even more so when you are too busy doing spin moves with a shorter weapon right in front of your enemy. But, I hear you say, this is a movie, so it doesn't matter, which is true. The problem is that I think even the average viewer will feel a disconnect here. Without using some kind of magic hand waving, this just looks as staged as it is, like a dance. It feels very low stakes. Of course, Ren and Kylo were never at risk. Larry over there doesn't even want to get involved in the fight. At the same time, the way our two characters use their weapons teaches us nothing about who they are. There's nothing in their fencing that adds to the narrative. They both just kind of move and fight in that same old familiar movie sword fighting style that we've seen a million times. Lots of clingy binds and spin moves, screaming and over-swinging, like a lightsaber doesn't cut through metal like a hot knife through butter. Overall, I think this fight needed a second pass. Hey, hell, maybe just a second take, particularly on that opening shot. It just isn't exciting or engaging to watch. Enemies stand around and do nothing when they have an overwhelming advantage. It sticks out like a sore thumb, and for such a vital, pivotal point in the movie, it just completely fell flat for me. Okay, so that's my least favourite, but what is my most favourite? Well, this one might be a surprise. I'm not really sure how popular the show it's from even is, but it's probably one of, if not my favourite depiction of a duel across all media, let alone Star Wars. That is the fight between Maul and Obi-Wan from Star Wars Rebels, a show I have never actually even watched. Frankly, I only know bits and pieces from the Clone Wars as to how Maul isn't in, well, bits and pieces. I remember him having spider legs at one point. Look, it's been a long time. So why this fight? For a start, by this point, a lot of us, even casual viewers, know what's at stake here. We know what Obi-Wan is on this planet to defend. We know these two have fought before. We can assume that Maul wants revenge and that Obi-Wan probably isn't too fond of Maul either. But that's just the build-up. That's been happening for years across the stories. What's amazing about this fight in particular is what they show us throughout their fight. They used what we know about these characters to tell us a story within their fight. We feel the tension between them, Obi-Wan's duty against Maul's desire for revenge, but there's much, much more. Obi-Wan takes his classic guard position, the one we always see young Obi-Wan using.
Hello there.
Which clearly prepares Maul for the fight he was expecting, the fight he has been expecting since they last fought, against the same man he was then. But Obi-Wan has grown. He's clever. We see him change his guard to a newer position, more point forward, more defensive, before finally tactically assuming the guard of Qui-Gon Jinn, his old master, and the man that Maul killed. Immediately, Maul recognizes this stance and thinks he has his target set. Either consciously or unconsciously, he knows this position. He's seen it before. He killed a man who fought like this. If Obi-Wan will fight like him, then he knows how to beat him. And he attacks with overconfidence, trying for the same strike and killing blow that killed Obi-Wan's master, but Obi-Wan was prepared. It was a trick. He was 2 steps ahead. He knew exactly what decisions Maul would make. He knew that in his hubris, he would attack that way. He read him perfectly. You see, it's easy to use spin moves and twirls to make someone look competent with a sword. But so much of the reality of sword fighting someone is a chess game. It's observation, trying to read your opponent, trying to deceive them into falsely reading something about you. By giving these characters swordsmanship character of its own, giving their techniques a personality, giving them their own tells and signatures, the average viewer can get an insight into what it's like in those few short moments that a duel may go on for. Fights are often over like this, incredibly fast, which for me doesn't take away from the affair. If anything, it adds gravity. The things at stake are all put on the line, everything, and it's over in an instant. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Getting back to making videos about topics like this has been great fun. If you could share any of my stuff with anyone you think might enjoy it, now that I'll be regularly updating the channel again, that would be great.